Today we are taking a closer look at three historic Susan B. Anthony dollars, each carrying the marks of time in its own unique way. The 1979 D dollar in circulated condition holds a gentle shine that quietly reflects its long journey through many hands. The 1980 D dollar, heavily circulated, shows deep wear that gives it a bold, rugged story only true age can create. The 1981 D dollar, still in circulated condition, carries a softer wear that preserves its classic dignity and timeless character. Together, these three coins form a mini timeline where every scratch and every faded detail adds to their authenticity and appeal. So let us begin and explore the real charm, the history, and the undeniable character these Susan B. Anthony dollars bring with them. 1979 D Susan B. Anthony dollars. The United States 1979 D Susan B. Anthony dollar in circulated condition is a coin that carries shock weight history and a deep sense of dramatic power that continues to grow stronger with every passing year. When a collector holds this coin, the first feeling that rises is disbelief, because this small metal piece represents one of the most controversial moments in the timeline of modern American currency. The 1979 D Mint mark tells you that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint, and the circulated condition tells you that this coin lived a hard life in the real world. It traveled through hands, through pockets, through machines, through drawers, and through daily life while carrying a story that is far larger than its size. This coin is not gentle. It is not quiet. It is a survivor, and survival gives it meaning that no untouched coin can ever carry. The story begins with a bold attempt by the United States to revolutionize the dollar. The government believed that Americans would embrace a smaller dollar coin that would replace the heavy and expensive dollar bills. They believed that the nation was ready for a modern metal dollar that could change the economic landscape. But the people were not ready. The people did not want it. The public rejected the coin with brutal force, and the rejection created shock throughout the country. The 1979 D Susan B. Anthony dollar became known as one of the fastest rejected coins in United States history. This rejection becomes even more dramatic when seen through the marks of wear on a circulated specimen. Every scratch and every softened detail reminds you that this coin walked through a world that did not accept it. It pushed into circulation, yet people pushed it back. It was used. It was passed. It was ignored. It was mistaken for a quarter again and again. The public confusion destroyed its purpose and sealed its fate. This makes the circulated condition version far more meaningful than the untouched mint state version. The circulated coin lived its struggle. It lived its rejection. It lived the confusion. A mint state coin sits silent with no story, but a circulated coin carries the full weight of time. That is why collectors in 2025 seek circulated condition specimens with strong interest, because these pieces document the truth. They show the battle between government intention and public reaction. They show the harsh environment of daily life. They show the failure that eventually turned into unexpected collectible beauty. When your eyes move across the surface of a circulated 1979 D Susan B. Anthony dollar, you see a field of tiny marks that speak louder than words. The high points on the portrait show flattening and smoothing that reveal constant contact. The cheek shows wear. The hair shows soft blending. The fields lose their original sharpness. Yet the portrait remains powerful. Susan B. Anthony stares forward with intensity. She refuses to fade. The circulated condition only strengthens her presence because her face appears as if it has passed through the struggle of time, yet continues to stand with iron resolve. This intensity becomes one of the reasons collectors feel drawn to the coin. Susan B. Anthony fought for justice. She fought for voice. She fought for equality. And the coin reflects her spirit through its durability. The reverse side also tells a shocking story. The eagle design appears softened by circulation. The feathers lose definition, yet the posture of the eagle remains strong. The eagle grips the olive branch with determination. Even with where the design communicates power. It communicates the strength of the United States. It communicates the symbolic message that the coin was meant to carry. But the circulated condition twists this message into something deeper. It shows the struggle of survival in the real world. It shows that symbolism alone could not carry the coin into success. The public rejection became stronger than the message of the design. and this tension between intention and reality creates a dramatic atmosphere around the coin. The 1979 D. Susan B. Anthony dollar in circulated condition has become a powerful collectible in 2025, not only because of its story, but also because of its dwindling survival numbers. Many people believe this coin is common, but the truth is more shocking. Most circulated examples have been lost, destroyed, discarded, or worn beyond interest. The surviving pieces that remain in decent circulated condition are growing fewer every year. These pieces carry the full journey and collectors want them because they represent genuine history. A circulated coin of this type becomes a moment frozen in metal. It becomes a message from the past. It becomes a physical record of a national experiment that failed yet still lives through collectors. The Denver Mint mark adds another layer of intensity because the D Mint produced millions of coins, yet the number of attractive circulated survivors is surprisingly low. Circulation patterns across the western United States caused heavy use, and the coins experienced harsher wear than those that circulated elsewhere. This means that many Denver-struck coins lost their detail faster. The surviving circulated examples with decent detail are now becoming small treasures. A collector who finds a good circulated specimen in 2025 understands immediately that they are holding a piece of American currency history that is growing in importance. The dramatic value rise of this coin also shocks new collectors. People once laughed at the Susan B. Anthony dollar. People called it a failure. People avoided it. Yet today in the modern market, the coin rises with energy. The reason is simple. The story is powerful. The design is meaningful. The historical moment is unforgettable. And the circulated survivors carry a depth that few modern coins can match. This depth drives value. It drives emotion. It drives attention. A circulated 1979 D. Susan B. Anthony dollar is no longer a rejected piece of metal. It is a historical artifact. Collectors in 2025 analyze the coin with new respect. They study the wear. They study the strike. They study the rim. They study the survival quality. They understand that each circulated piece reflects the truth of its time. The United States attempted to push forward into a new era of modern currency, but the people pushed back. The nation was not prepared for change, and the coin absorbed the consequences. It absorbed the rejection. It absorbed the confusion. It absorbed the failure. And today it stands as a strong symbol of that moment. This transformation from failure to collectible treasure is shocking, because very few coins in United States history have experienced this shift. Most coins start with acceptance and eventually grow into rarity. But this coin began with rejection and grew into significance. Circulated condition plays a huge part in this significance because it shows reality. It shows that this coin lived through a difficult timeline and still survived long enough to reach collectors today. The connection between modern collectors and this coin is intense. People today value authenticity. They value real stories. They value objects that have lived. The circulated 1979 D. Susan B. Anthony dollar provides all of this. It is not a perfect coin. It is not a shining museum piece. It is a survivor that carries the truth of a national failure. It is a survivor that carries the spirit of Susan B. Anthony herself. It is a survivor that carries the voice of history. The story of the United States 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar in circulated condition grows more intense as each worn detail reveals the struggle of a coin that tried to change American currency and faced rejection from the very people it was made for. The worn surfaces become proof of a national experiment that unfolded with hope and ended with confusion. The circulated 1979 dollar carries this energy in every faded high point and every softened mark. The moment a collector holds a circulated example, the emotional power becomes clear, because this is not just a coin. It is the physical memory of a dramatic attempt to introduce a new small-sized dollar into daily use. The portrait of Susan B. Anthony shows flattened high points where the cheek and jaw have softened through years of circulation. This softening transforms the portrait into a symbol of resilience because the design still stands despite the pressure of time. The worn features mirror the strength of Susan B. Anthony herself, who pushed through resistance in her fight for equality. The worn portrait in circulated condition gives viewers a moment of shock because they see history and human struggle reflected in metal that has lived a real life. The reverse with the eagle landing on the lunar surface adds another burst of dramatic energy. The eagle appears softened from circulation. The wings lose some definition. The lunar ground beneath the claws becomes smoother. Yet the symbolism remains powerful. The fading surface creates a visual message that the era of lunar exploration has become a memory. The worn reverse becomes a silent story about fading ambition and shifting national focus. This dramatic contrast makes the circulated $1979 feel alive when examined closely. The rim of the coin shows a transformation created by years of use. The distinctive 12-sided outline becomes rounded and smooth. This change becomes a symbol of time pressing against the coin again and again. Under bright light, the softened shape looks like a shadow of its original form. This effect draws collectors into the emotional depth of the coin because they see a design surviving through age and movement. Collectors experience a second shock when they learn that genuine circulated $1979 are less common than expected. Millions of these coins were stored in vaults after the public rejected them. This meant far fewer circulated than originally intended. The coins that did circulate belonged to a small population that gained wear in a short period before the coin vanished from daily life. This scarcity gives circulated examples surprising emotional and historical value. The market in 2025 shows rising interest in circulated $1979 because collectors are drawn to coins that carry real history. The worn examples tell stories that uncirculated pieces cannot express. They reveal the emotional weight of a failed experiment that tried to reshape American money. Viewers feel this weight when they watch a close-up review of a circulated coin. Every mark becomes a chapter of a story no longer told in textbooks. The worn surfaces act like a silent record of movement through time. Each mark is a physical memory of hands, pockets, counters, machines, and daily transactions. This authenticity creates a dramatic force that cannot be duplicated. The circulated 1979 Susan B. Anthony dollar becomes more than metal. It becomes a fragment of American life preserved in wear. The emotional power grows even stronger when collectors understand how quickly the public abandoned the coin. The similarity in size to the quarter caused confusion and frustration. The use of the coin collapsed within months. The coins that circulated during that brief period absorbed the story of disappointment and rejection. The worn examples that survive today carry that entire history in every soft edge. 1980 Susan B. Anthony Dollars. The United States 1980 Susan B. Anthony dollar in circulated condition is one of the most misunderstood and yet shockingly powerful modern coins ever created by the nation. And when you hold this coin in your hand, you feel the weight of a story that is deeper, darker, and far more dramatic than ordinary collectors ever imagined, because this coin was born in a moment of national confusion and economic transition, and every mark on its surface tells a hidden truth about the struggle of modern currency in the United States. The 1980 mint mark signals that this coin came from the Denver Mint, a facility known for mass production speed and mechanical force, and this force can be seen in the way the metal carries its wear today. The circulated condition exposes the truth of its journey. The scratches speak. The softened portrait speaks. The faded field speak. This coin is not silent. It is alive with the scars of real circulation, and these scars create a shocking presence that no mint state coin can ever match. The 1980 Susan B. Anthony dollar did not enter a peaceful world. It entered a storm. The nation had already rejected the 1979 release, and the anger, confusion, and frustration carried into 1980. Americans refused to accept the small-sized dollar. People mistook it for a quarter again and again. Store workers refused it. Vending machines rejected it. And the public sentiment grew harsher as the coin continued circulating. The rejection was not gentle. It was aggressive. It was widespread. It was immediate. And the circulated condition coins carry the evidence of this rejection through every worn detail you see on their surfaces today. The most dramatic truth is that the United States government believed strongly that the Susan B. Anthony dollar would transform the future of currency. Yet the opposite happened. The coin failed to win the trust of the public, and instead became a symbol of a national experiment collapsing under the weight of misjudgment. The 1980D version shows this collapse more intensely than the 1979 version, because by this year the country had already made up its mind, and the coin had to struggle harder to survive in circulation. That struggle is engraved into the metal. The circulated condition pieces show a kind of wear that feels emotional. You see flattened hairlines. You see weakened cheek structure. You see the blending of high points. You see rim nicks that record the collisions with other coins during circulation. All of these marks form a living story. Collectors in 2025 now feel a strange attraction to the circulated 1980D Susan B. Anthony dollar, because it represents a dramatic turning point in American currency evolution. A mint state example may show perfection, yet it lacks the real soul that circulated examples carry. A circulated coin is a witness. It has lived through the battlefield of daily life, where rejection and acceptance fought violently. It passed through countless hands that did not want it. It moved through stores that misunderstood it. It lived in pockets where people complained about it. And somehow it survived long enough to reach modern collectors who now recognize its importance. The portrait of Susan B. Anthony remains one of the most powerful features of the coin, even in circulated condition. Her face stares forward with strength and determination, even with where she appears unbroken. This is symbolic because Susan B. Anthony herself was a fighter. She battled for rights. She battled for justice. She battled for representation. And the coin reflects her enduring spirit. Circulated wear does not weaken the presence of her portrait. It enhances it. It gives it the feeling of struggle and survival. The coin becomes a tribute to her strength through its marks. The reverse carries the eagle landing on the lunar surface with stunning symbolism, because it represents the power and ambition of the United States. Yet in circulated condition, the softened wings and faded surface create a sense of realism. The symbolism now mixes with the struggle of circulation. The eagle appears like a survivor that has weathered storms and still stands strong. This dramatic visual impact becomes part of the coin's appeal. Collectors appreciate symbols that carry both strength and history, and the circulated 1980D coin delivers that combination with surprising force. The 1980D Susan B. Anthony dollar also carries shock value, because it was not produced in the same chaotic atmosphere as the first year, but it still suffered the same rejection. The mint produced fewer coins compared to earlier expectations, because the demand was already fading. As a result, the number of surviving circulated pieces that remain in visually acceptable condition is not as high as many people think. Most of these coins were heavily used, and many became damaged beyond collectible interest. The survivors that still show character without being destroyed hold growing attention in 2025. Collectors feel a sense of urgency when searching for circulated examples because each passing year reduces the number of surviving pieces. Coins retire. Coins get lost. Coins get melted. Coins disappear in household drawers and remain hidden for decades. This shrinking survival pool pushes collectors toward action, and action pushes value upward. The 1980D Susan B. Anthony dollar, once ignored, is now a rising collectible, and the demand continues to grow, especially among collectors who focus on modern history. What makes this coin even more shocking is that it carries the full emotional weight of a failed national transition. The government wanted a modern dollar coin to reshape daily commerce. The public refused to accept it. The coin fought for its place. It failed. And now, decades later, the very failure that once destroyed its purpose has become the reason for its collectible strength. The circulated condition pieces become symbols of that historic tension. They embody resistance. They embody economic miscalculation. They embody a national moment that can never be repeated again. When you examine the metal of a circulated 1980D Susan B. Anthony dollar closely, you can almost feel the movement of time. The faint lines across the surface are not flaws. They are the footprints of history. They are the echoes of the countless hands that passed the coin from place to place. They are the proof that this coin lived. That is what collectors want today. They want authenticity. They want history they can hold. They want a coin that speaks. The story of the United States 1980D Susan B. Anthony dollar in circulated condition becomes even more dramatic when we move deeper into the physical details that reveal the hidden journey of this coin. The worn surfaces speak with a silent intensity that shocks collectors the moment they study the coin under bright light. The 1980 issue marked the second year of production at the Denver Mint, and by this time the nation had already grown weary of the small-sized dollar. This exhaustion shows itself in the circulated examples, because each one carries the pressure of a coin that struggled to survive in a system that never fully accepted it. The portrait of Susan B. Anthony on the obverse shows smoothed high points, where the cheek, jaw, and hair strands have lost their crisp definition. This wear sends a dramatic message. It shows that the coin did not rest in storage like many examples. Instead, it moved from hand to hand across counters and through machines, and into pockets where real life shaped its surfaces. The circulation marks turn the portrait into an emotional reminder of human movement. The softened details become a symbol of a design fighting to remain visible through years of friction. The mint mark D sits near the lower right side of the portrait, and on circulated examples, it often appears slightly softened from contact. This visual weakening of the mint mark creates a powerful sense of age. It tells collectors that the coin has lived a long journey through daily transactions. The fading of such a small detail adds dramatic tension because it shows how even the core identifiers of the coin become victims of time. Turning to the reverse, the eagle landing on the lunar surface displays a mixture of wear patterns that makes circulated 1980 dollars visually striking. The wings show loss of feather detail. The lunar ground looks smoother. The bold landing scene appears almost ghost-like in heavily used coins. This fading of the moon landing design creates emotional force because it feels like history slowly dissolving before the viewer. The reverse becomes a dramatic reminder that the era of the moon missions had already begun slipping into memory by 1980. The worn design becomes a symbol of fading national ambition and shifting priorities. The rim of the coin presents another layer of dramatic storytelling. The original 12-sided outline softens under years of circulation until it begins to resemble a rounded edge. This transformation creates a haunting effect when viewed closely. It looks like the coin is slowly losing its identity while still fighting to hold on. The rim wear becomes a timeline carved into metal showing where the coin has been and how it endured. Collectors feel a shock when they learn that despite millions being minted, the majority of 1980 Susan B. Anthony dollars never entered circulation. Large amounts remained in storage because the public did not want them. This means that genuine circulated examples are more meaningful than their mintage numbers suggest. The coins that actually circulated tell the real story of the era. They reveal the stress and rejection these dollars faced. They show a design attempting to function in daily life, but meeting resistance at every turn. The circulated surfaces hold emotional depth because they show the physical evidence of a national currency experiment under strain. The 1980 circulated dollar becomes a time capsule that contains the tension, confusion, frustration, and brief usage of the small dollar series. Each scratch and each worn high point becomes a record of a currency that attempted to change American habits but failed. Collectors in 2025 feel growing interest in circulated Anthony dollars because they represent genuine lived history. The worn examples show a life that uncirculated coins cannot express. They reveal how the public handled the coin, how machines rejected it, how it fell to the bottom of drawers, how it passed through hands that barely noticed it. This emotional authenticity creates a dramatic sense of connection between the viewer and the era. The circulated 1980 example becomes a powerful story in metal. It speaks with the voice of an experiment that struggled to survive. It shows the attempt to introduce a strong female figure into American coinage. It shows the pressure of criticism. It shows the friction of daily movement. It becomes a symbol of resilience in the face of widespread rejection. 1981 Susan B. Anthony dollars. The story of the United States 1981 Susan B. Anthony dollar circulated condition begins with a sense of mystery and tension because this coin carries a strange and powerful place in modern American numismatics. And every collector who has ever held one knows that it feels different because it was never meant for widespread public release in the way earlier coins were produced. And the 1981 strike stands as the rarest in general circulation among the main years of the series. And that alone sets the stage for an intense hunt that shocks new collectors when they realize how elusive this piece can be in the real world today. And when you see one in circulated condition, the coin immediately tells a story of survival because this date and mint mark were primarily struck for mint sets. Which means any circulated example likely slipped into the public world by accident or by unusual distribution events. And this truth gives the circulated 1981 D dollar a kind of electric energy that tells you that you are holding something that should not naturally exist in worn form. And this idea becomes even more dramatic when collectors learn that circulated 1981 D Susan B. Anthony dollars can sometimes bring surprising attention on the marketplace, especially when buyers know that this mint mark is the final Denver issue of the original series, and that the Denver Mint did not strike Anthony dollars again until the short revival in 1999. And this gap adds a sense of finality to the coin that turns even a circulated example into a piece of numismatic drama. When examining a circulated 1981 D Susan B. Anthony dollar, you see a portrait of Susan B. Anthony that carries faint traces of the original bold design, though softened by years of contact and movement. And these marks of wear give the coin a real-world charm that proof-like or uncirculated coins cannot replicate. And in the numismatic world, circulated condition is often seen as ordinary. Yet this coin defies that expectation because it represents an extremely small percentage of total mintage that ever escaped into circulation. And this rarity creates a surprising tension whenever collectors find one, because the mind immediately wonders how it escaped a mint set, how it entered the hands of everyday Americans, and how it traveled through commerce long enough to acquire honest wear. And the shock comes from the realization that most people never even saw an Anthony dollar in daily life during the early 80s. So finding a circulated example of this specific date becomes almost like discovering a relic from a forgotten experiment in American currency. The coin itself carries the D mint mark clearly placed just above the left side of the shoulder on the reverse side, near the tail of the eagle landing on the lunar surface. And this mint mark tells you that the Denver Mint was responsible for a coin that would become a modern rarity. And the worn surfaces around the eagle often show light flattening and minor contact marks typical of circulated life. Yet these signs serve only to amplify the authenticity of the piece, because collectors of modern dollars often seek examples that tell a story through wear, not merely through pristine shine. And when people see a circulated 1981 D Susan B. Anthony dollar, they are instantly hit with the shock of recognition that this is no common date, and that the wear on this piece has literally captured a journey that only a tiny portion of the total mintage ever experienced. The market for circulated Anthony dollars has fluctuated through the years, and yet the 1981 D remains a standout because supply is astonishingly low compared to the demand created by collectors who want to complete date and mint mark sets. And this pressure alone creates value. And while circulated examples are not sky-high in price, the shock comes from the fact that even worn pieces can sell far above their face value simply because of scarcity and controlled release. And the tension increases further because many collectors new to the hobby assume that Anthony dollars are largely common and worth face value only. But they quickly discover that the 1981 D breaks this assumption in a dramatic way. And that realization often drives people into a deeper study of the series. A circulated 1981 D example usually shows wear across the hair detail of Susan B. Anthony, with the high points softened into smoother surfaces. And the cheek area often displays clear rub from circulation activity. And the 12-sided border design may lose some of its geometric sharpness. And yet, even in this softened state, the coin maintains a strong presence because the design was engineered to stand out even under heavy use. And the dramatic part is how the wear actually enhances the visual narrative, making the coin appear battle-tested and historically seasoned. And this gives collectors a sense of holding an artifact rather than a common modern dollar. In the year 2025, the coin market sees increasing interest in historical modern pieces. And this includes circulating survivors from issues that had limited public distribution, like the 1981 D Susan B. Anthony dollar. And online auctions and local dealers sometimes experience sudden spikes of attention whenever a circulated example is offered because these coins appear less frequently than people expect. And the shock value for viewers and bidders comes from the sudden realization that the worn condition does not diminish its desirability, but instead confirms its unusual history. And this dynamic pushes collectors to reevaluate what a circulated coin can truly represent. The story behind the coin deepens when you consider how the Susan B. Anthony dollar was originally intended to replace the large Eisenhower dollar and become a practical everyday currency that Americans would carry in their pockets. And yet the small size and close similarity to the quarter made the coin extremely unpopular. And this rejection meant that millions of Anthony dollars sat unused in storage for years. And this failure increases the shock factor today, because circulated examples of certain dates like 1981 D are frighteningly limited. And that scarcity is not an accident, but a consequence of a failed monetary experiment that unfolded across the late 70s and early 80s. The deeper you go into the world of the 1981 D Susan B. Anthony dollar in circulated condition, the more you realize that this coin carries a tension that feels almost cinematic. Because each worn surface and each softened detail is a reminder that this coin should have remained locked away inside sealed government-issued mint sets. And yet something happened that allowed this particular piece to break free from the controlled environment and enter into the turbulence of real American circulation. And this moment of escape is what gives circulated examples their dramatic power. Because every collector understands that a circulated survivor of this issue is not simply a coin, but an anomaly that should not exist. And that realization alone draws intense interest from viewers who want to understand why a coin that looks simple can hold such a deep story. When holding a circulated 1981 D Anthony dollar, you feel the weight of its journey. Because the Susan B. Anthony portrait shows a level of wear that only real-world usage can create. And this wear pattern gives the face of the coin a human-like realism that almost mirrors the struggles that Susan B. Anthony herself faced while fighting for equal rights. And this connection between design and history becomes even more powerful when the coin is worn, because it is as if the circulation marks are symbolic echoes of the fight she endured across her lifetime. And collectors who study this series often comment on how a circulated example seems more alive than an uncirculated one, because the softness in the high points can look like age, wisdom, and endurance. And this strange symbolism enhances the dramatic quality of the piece. The reverse of the coin tells another chapter of the story, because the eagle landing on the lunar surface is inspired by the Apollo mission insignia. And in circulated condition, the eagle may show flattening along the wings and body. And the lunar landscape beneath the claws may appear smoother and less textured. And yet despite this, where the reverse never loses its bold presence. And this dual imagery of a powerful eagle overlooking the moon creates a striking contrast with the worn surfaces, because it suggests a vision of American ambition filtered through the passage of time and circulation. And this contrast generates emotional tension and shock for many collectors who realize they are holding a coin that connects space exploration and civil rights activism in a single dramatic design. The D mint mark on the 1981 issue gains even more emotional weight, because this is the final Denver production of the original Anthony series. And in circulated condition, the mint mark sometimes shows traces of clarity or softening, depending on how heavily the coin was used. And this mint mark stands as a signature of rarity, because the Denver Mint did not issue Anthony dollars for public circulation in 1981. And therefore each circulated example is a survivor that defies the standard mint set path. And collectors who understand this background often feel a sudden rush of excitement when they spot a worn 1981 D coin, because the discovery feels like uncovering a small treasure that most people never knew existed. In the coin marketplace of 2025, the demand for circulated 1981 D Susan B. Anthony dollars grows stronger, because collectors and YouTube audiences have developed a fascination with coins that tell dramatic survival stories. And the shock value lies in realizing that uncirculated examples are common within mint sets, but truly circulated examples are far scarcer. And this scarcity pushes the numismatic community to reevaluate how value is assigned, because value is not solely determined by shine or grade, but also by the emotional narrative and rarity of circumstances that allowed certain pieces to enter circulation and remain in the wild long enough to acquire wear. As the camera focuses on a circulated 1981 D example, the worn fields and softened edges create a kind of atmospheric tension that makes viewers lean closer to the screen, because the surfaces seem to whisper that this object has passed through hands, pockets, registers, tills, and time itself. And these whispers build a story that feels larger than the coin. And this cinematic effect is what gives the Anthony dollar a dramatic presence in modern coin videos. And it keeps viewers captivated as they watch each detail being described layer by layer. And each observation amplifies the sense of wonder. Because the coin looks simple at first glance, yet holds a story that spans decades and carries layers of meaning. Collectors often underestimate the emotional power of circulated coins until they encounter a rare date like the 1981D, which forces them to rethink their assumptions. Because circulated rarity is a different type of rarity from uncirculated mint set preservation. And circulated rarity often feels more alive because it carries fingerprints of the past in the form of wear patterns, ding slight smoothing, and soft edges. And this living history effect inspires a dramatic shift in perspective. Because collectors begin to understand that circulated coins are not damaged, but documented by time. And this revelation shocks many new collectors and draws them deeper into the world of numismatics. The economic behavior of the market adds another layer of drama. Because circulated 1981D Anthony dollars do not appear frequently on sales platforms. And when they do, the bidding activity sometimes surprises even experienced sellers. Because the competition arises not from pristine condition, but from scarcity within circulation. And this scarcity triggers an emotional response that fuels the hunt for these pieces. And every time one is discovered in pocket change or an estate lot, it sends a pulse through the collecting community. As people rush to identify whether it is a true circulated survivor or a coin that slipped from a broken mint set. The circulated condition enhances the story. Because each worn spot on the coin becomes a symbolic map of the journey the coin endured. And when collectors examine these surfaces, they sense the presence of time embedded within the metal. And this presence creates a dramatic emotional pull that keeps viewers hooked on videos showcasing these coins. And they want to know the full story behind every mark. Because these marks validate the authenticity of the circulation path that only a tiny fraction of 1981D dollars ever experienced. Thank you for watching the entire video. You can tell us in the comments what we should make the next video about.